Oh, hello there. I'm Joshy and I built this 5x8 tiny home with zero experience. And in this video, I want to give you a general overview of what it was like for me to build this 5x8 tiny home with zero experience. Because I do kind of think there are probably a lot of people like me that want to build something like this, but don't have any experience at all. So the first thing I want to talk about is why did I build on a 5x8 trailer and why did I get this exact trailer to build on? And I guess the main reason why I decided to build on a trailer was because I just felt like vans were a little bit overpriced. When I shopped around, they have a super high price tag for something that is just an engine and a box. I mean, for a lot less money, you can get more seats, more function, and better features than a metal box with an engine. I don't know why they're so expensive, but the van manufacturers are probably laughing at all of us from the top of their kingdom. And the reason why I went with this exact trailer is because I know I needed something small because I was towing with my Jeep Gladiator, and I know that it wasn't going to tow super great for long periods of time. And honestly, this was just the one that was readily available in my area. So I did buy my trailer used, and the reason why I did buy it used is because it was actually a little bit pre-built out. It did come with the shore power, which hooks up right here. And I do have one outlet here. And I have an outlet in here. And coming around real quick to the back here, there's another outlet right here. And all my shore power hook up right here. Now, this is something that I thought that I would use when living in this 5x8 tiny home, but it turns out I don't think I've even used it one time. I did test it out to make sure that it worked. And when I did my build out, I did replace these with fancy USB ones that my wife picked out, but we just really never connect to shore power because there's an off-grid system under there. And the trailer also came with this window and that window pre-installed. And while I thought I would love to have windows, I really don't. And I really regret getting one that already had windows in it because I had to build around the windows and it kind of like changed my whole design factor about it. And it was a little bit difficult to do my benches to the exact height of the windows. And the third thing that my trailer came with was this awning. And that's probably one of the main reasons why I went with a used trailer instead of getting a new one. Because with the shore power, the two windows, and the awning, it was about the same price as a new trailer. And I thought that when I would build this out, that I would save a lot of money getting all these things together. But it turns out the three things that came with the trailer, I really don't use ever. I did try out the awning once. It's still pretty much brand new, but it's just something that I never put out. Because even on a rainy day when I do put it out, I really can't keep the door open because the water still comes down through this crack here and lands everywhere. I think the awning is only useful if you hang out a lot outside. Now, as a zero experience builder, this build took me 3 weeks to build out, but the trailer did sit in the driveway for about 2 weeks. And that was because I tried my hardest to make IKEA furniture or some kind of Amazon furniture or cabinets fit in here so I didn't have to do the actual build. And while that might work out in a bigger trailer if you have room to waste, it did not work out in this tiny space. Because I would first take one piece of furniture, like something I can make my bed out of, measured it out to here, and that worked out great. But the problem is I couldn't find a piece of furniture that would fit exactly here without wasting a ton of space. And when you're building out something like this, you really want to use every inch that you can as a usable space when living in it. So once I finally started actually getting to work on this trailer, the first thing to do is take off the walls and put on insulation. And I think that's like the first step that everyone gets caught up on. You can spend hours, days, months looking online trying to figure out what is best. And there is a lot of debate about what insulation is best for things like these. But I only had 3 weeks to finish this build. So what I wound up going with was just insulation at Home Depot. And I went with the foam board insulation over the pink stuff just simply because of cost. I know my trailer looks fancy and expensive, but I tried to save money where I can. And the pink stuff was just a little bit more expensive than the foam stuff. And I do have pink stuff underneath the trailer, and I think that was a smart decision because it's more rugged than the foam stuff. I do want to note that I actually put the reflective side facing outwards because I was more concerned about keeping it cool inside than warm. And I know a lot of people online say to put it inwards to keep it more warm in the trailer, but I already knew that I was using a diesel heater and keeping it warm was not an issue for me. The biggest problem for me that I thought without having an AC was keeping this trailer cool. So that's why I put the reflective part facing out. So after the insulation was done, we threw the walls back up, give them a quick paint, and then we cut holes in the ceiling. And I think that was one of the more sketchy parts. And I think cutting holes in metal is where a lot of people get hung up on. But again, I only had 3 weeks to build this, so we just had to send it. The first hole I cut was for the rooftop fan. I just quickly measured it on the roof, tried to make it as center as possible, drilled holes in the corners, and used a jigsaw to cut it out. And that's exactly what I did with my skylight also. I really thought this was going to be one of the more difficult parts of the build, but it turns out it wasn't that bad. I think it was just a little bit dangerous, and when you're doing something like that, really be careful and take as much precaution as you can. It was after cutting out these two holes that really made me regret the decision of getting the windows. Because I really don't like the placement of my windows. I thought it was going to be harder than it was, but it turns out it wasn't that bad. In my next build, I'm definitely going with a new trailer so I don't have to work around anyone else's design. Now, after doing all that, the next step was to build my bed. And that's pretty much the whole reason of this trailer, right? Is for sleeping in. So how I made my bed was, I first laid down here, I took a pencil, I measured it, that came out to about right here, and that became the measurement for my bed. I just wanted to make sure that this was long enough for me to sleep comfortably. And I'm about 6 feet tall, so I figured that if I built it from my height, most of the population could sleep in here just fine. So I built this whole design as a combination of my bed and my storage. And the reason why I built it like this is because I had zero experience building anything, and this is all that I can come up with. And I think the design is super simple, and I think anyone can build it. Because my bed is pretty much just plywood here with fabric stapled around it. Super simple stuff. And all of these storage containers under here are built with the skeleton frame. And on the outside, I just use a thin piece of plywood. I think it is important to note that one of the most important tools when building something like this is one of those pocket drilling things. Now, I can't remember what it's actually called. You can look it up, but I'll show you right here because I have one in here. This is my goodie bag of stuff I brought on the road just in case I need to make repairs. And here's what it looks like. Maybe you can let us all know in the comments what this is technically called. But pretty much you take your wood, you set it there, you drill in 2 holes, and that way you can put screws in and pretty much screw it in anywhere you want. I just went with this specific one because it wasn't that expensive, and I thought that I could make it work out well. So the whole design of this L-shaped seating area here is pretty much just designed around my dog and the natural way the trailer flows in general. Because we do have a door behind you, and we do have the door right here, and it is such a small space, I knew that having the doors open would really open the space up. I had first thought about blocking out the back and turning that into a shower, but I just felt like that would make the trailer more crowded. So that's why it's an L shape. And the reason why the widths are heights of what they are is for my dog. This side is a bit wider because I knew he needed a space to turn around. This height is exactly what it is because it is a perfect amount that he needs to walk around underneath it. And I didn't really want to sacrifice my headspace because I could have made my seat higher and gave him more room, but I think the amount of room he has is just perfect. So after we got the living and sleeping space all done, it was time to focus on the rest of the trailer. And the 2 things that I know that we needed in the trailer was a toilet, which we have one right here. And this is just a composting toilet, which is pretty much just an expensive plastic bucket. And I just wanted to hide the toilet a bit and also build a seat so we can sit down and look in the mirror, get ready in the morning, do the dishes or whatever. So yeah, the measurement of this box is pretty much so it could fit the toilet, utilize every inch of space we can get, and also fit things like toilet paper, wet wipes, whatever else we need in here. And again, the height of it is built so we don't waste space underneath us because I did put storage underneath it, and it's pretty much built for the comfort of my size. I knew that I wanted to be able to sit straight up and be comfortable, so when I did this measurement, I tried my best to stand like this and get a good measurement on the wall, and that turned into the size of this box. Now the sink was a little bit more difficult to measure out because I did know that I need to stand up a bit and do things. It did take a little bit more time. I just kind of looked at it, measured the line, and called it a day. And again, the width of the sink is exactly how much room we need to shut the door, so we didn't waste any room there. And I think it's important to note, I got a bit lucky on this because I really didn't do any measurements on paper. I know a lot of people use the IKEA website when designing places like this, or they use some kind of fancy computer program. And I think a lot of people do every measurement of their build before they even start. That was just all a bit too complicated for me. I just measured one piece, put it in, measured the next piece, put it in, and just went like that. And I do frequently get comments about my blueprint or whatever so you can build it. There is no blueprint, there's no secret recipe. Just measure it and cut everything on the fly. But I think as a zero experience builder, it worked out well because I didn't have any experience with the tools, and I used a table saw and a circular saw the most when cutting wood. And I'm not gonna lie, it was a little bit difficult to get the measurements perfect because you do have to measure like the blade thickness and whatever. And yeah, so there was a lot of repeat cutting going on. And my partition walls, my sink, nice swivel table here, and the top of this toilet, and it's all made out of one piece of birch plywood. And I actually did this really fast. That's because I was running out of time in my build. And the way that I did it was I just took a pencil and I just kind of drew this kind of shape on it, and I thought it looked okay, so I just took the jigsaw and cut it out, and then I flipped it over to this side, drew it out again, cut that out, did a quick sand, and I was done. I think this whole wall here took me about an hour to make, but it's one of the highlights of my trailer. I think it looks pretty cool. And again, with these walls in here, it's all just a thin piece of plywood. I did use a nail gun to nail all these in, and I had no experience with a nail gun, and I don't know about the settings of a nail gun or anything, but I had zero time, and I just had to put it in, and I don't think it worked out that well. If I had to do it again, I might use screws or something, because the problem I had was that the nails kept shooting too far in, and I actually had to come inside with an angle grinder and grind off the rest of the nail. So after we got all that done, it was time to focus on our off-grid system. And I did go with one 200-watt flexible solar panel that I just put on top, and I ran the wire over here and down, and underneath this seat is where I have my whole off-grid system. And as a zero experience builder, the off-grid system was a little bit complicated. Not so much the actual build part of it, but mostly researching what size wire you need, what size breakers you need, and how they all connect together. Now that I've done it, I can say it's not that difficult, and I think you could do it too. And I have 200 amp hour batteries, a 40 amp DC to DC charger, a 1000 watt Renogy inverter, 200 watt solars on the roof, and a solar charge controller, along with a 12 volt fuse box and a bunch of breakers and bus bars. But yeah, that whole setup was about $1,500, a little bit less than that. And while it does sound expensive, and I think it's a lot more power than a portable power bank, and it works out really well. If you're like me and have zero experience doing anything like this, I would still highly recommend to spend the extra time, do the research, and figure out the off-grid system. Because I did travel 6 months with a portable power bank, because it was like $600, and I think it's like 1/4 the size of this setup. And while it's great that you can like move it around camp and plug in things if you want to do lights or something, this is just way better if you're gonna actually do a whole build like this. So after we got all that done, it was time for the final touches. And we just threw a little nice mirror here, because I knew that we would need a big mirror to get ready. And I thought this one just looked pretty cool. And my wife picked it out, so I love it even more. And I forgot to mention about the flooring, but I did go with the peel and stick tiles. And I kind of regret it, because while they do say that it's waterproof, it's actually not waterproof between the cracks. And it's not a super big deal because I don't really spill water in here, but sometimes Roy has spilt his water that I put here. And while I did put silicone around the edges here, water can still get into here. And while it's not Roy Boy's fault here because he's a good boy, I think next time I would just go with one big piece of vinyl. And one of the last things we did was put up the ceiling, and this was probably one of the most difficult parts of the build, especially as a zero experience builder. Now what I wound up going with was the same thin piece of plywood that we used for here and here and here and here. And I did it for two reasons. One is that my roof is kind of curved, and I know that I needed some kind of material that would bend a little bit, and two, to save weight. And now since my curved roof turns into like a flat edge over here, I really needed something that I could mold into shape, and I just went with the corrugated plastic here, and I painted it the same color black. And my LED lighting here is just kind of using it as a trim piece here where the plastic connects to the wood, and this rope is also acting like a little trim piece from the corrugated plastic to the wood. And I do want to note that this is actually two pieces of wood here. This is one thin one, this is one big one, and that's why I have this rope going along there. It's just to kind of block that there's a gap there. And I know this video is kind of vague and there's not a distinctive point to the video, but the reason why I made this video is because if you're like me and thinking about doing something like this with zero experience, you probably watch a ton of videos already. And while you're watching a ton of videos, a lot of creators don't answer the specific question that you have in your head. So that was kind of the purpose of this video. The points that I talked about were things that I really thought about in my head that I couldn't figure out by watching other creators' videos. And also just about how it was building this with zero experience. Now, while I am really happy that I went with this trailer for my first build, I do want something bigger. But the whole purpose of this trailer was to travel with my wife for 6 months and bring her up to Canada where she's working there on a contract. That's why I only had 3 weeks to do the build. And I have to say, having a deadline makes you actually get it done. Maybe if you're thinking about doing something like this, give yourself a deadline. And it doesn't have to be like the overall deadline. It could be like, this weekend I'm getting installation done. Next weekend I'm getting the flooring done. Next weekend I'm getting the bed done. And I think that's about gonna wrap it up for this video. I probably missed a lot of things and rambled on a bit. That's because I pretty much do my videos without a script. So if you do have any questions about this build, please let me know in the comments below, and I'll try my best to answer it. Although I am confident that I could do this again, keep in mind that I'm not an experienced builder. These are just my personal results from my personal build. And as always, I have a ton of shorts posted, so be sure to check them out. But yeah, I think that's it for this video. We'll see you in the next one.